This is BofC Live, the video and podcast series of Business of Cannabis. Find out all that we do at businessofcannabis.com. On our BofC Live podcast conversation, we will connect with Matt Hawkins. He is the managing partner of Entourage Effect Capital, a leading US-based private investment firm operating and investing in the cannabis industry. We'll talk about his view of the cannabis sector right now, so stick around for that conversation with Matt Hawkins. Matt, thanks for making time. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad we can have you. I want to talk about a bunch of different things, and hopefully we'll get to them all or some component of them all. I want to talk about Entourage. I want to talk about Harborside. I'd like to talk to you about where cannabis fits in the big macro picture of the economy. I don't know, lots of other stuff too. Are you ready? I'm going to pepper you.
Let's do it.
Okay. Talk about Entourage first. Tell us a little bit about the firm and sort of where you place assets and your thought process.
Sure. So we're investing out of our third fund at this point in time. I like to say we've kind of matured along with the industry in terms of where we are investing right now. And our first fund, which was back in 14, 15, 16, we were very early stage investing, but that's where we were as an industry. Fund two was more of a 18, 19 vintage, and we were doing more Series A investing, 3 to 5 million over the life of an investment. Companies that had revenue, probably no real earnings, but again, that's where we were as an industry. And in Fund three, we're doing more growth equity investments, more scale building, as we like to call them, and it's with companies that have actual earnings and sometimes even EBITDA. And so, actual revenue, but sometimes EBITDA, and even in some cases, some earnings. So yeah, we've matured right next along with the industry. We're writing bigger checks now, $5 to $20 million over the life of an investment. And we're super excited about being able to do that and have the capital to make that happen, because building scale, as I've said numerous times, is I think where the winners are going to be once some type of legalization occurs.
I want to think about that, because that time horizon you're talking about in three waves of your funds, but those are three big waves of the industry too, and the maturation thereof. Like, what has been the most striking? Is it companies coming to maturity and actually reaching scale and operating? Is it the general public's acceptance of the cannabis industry? Like, what's been the one or two most striking things that you've seen in the course of your investing?
I would say the latter. That really has been eye-opening to me. I live in Dallas, Texas, pretty conservative state, and all my friends that are damn near far right wing all think marijuana should be legalized, and so it just shows you. And this is also the same general location to where I was. I had people telling me back in 2014 that I was crazy to be doing this, and so. It's really quite interesting how quickly the court of public opinion has changed on this, such that it's not only people want it to be legalized, but it is so mainstream now that it's mind-boggling from someone who's been in this on when it was not that way back in 14 and 15 probably.
Does it make it more exciting, or does it make it more like any other sector now as you think about
it? It's funny. It makes it probably just as exciting, but even more frustrating, because we're tantalizingly close to something, but we don't know exactly when it's going to happen, what it's going to look like. So, yeah. And even those of us that are, that follow it and eat, drink, and sleep it, and all that is, hell, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
So it's that part's frustrating, but yet it's also very, very exciting that we're even having these conversations.
Yeah. And thinking about that, because obviously what happens on a state by state level is critically important to the industry as it is now, but everybody has their eyes on their current geographies and jurisdictions, and one eye or one and a half eyes looking what's happening in DC. And like, are you what do you expect? Will there be banking reform? Will there be federal legalization? Will there be something that happens out of DC from your perspective? And how do you bake that into sort of how you think about where you're putting money?
So we obviously think both will happen. I think none of us know exactly what the timeline is. I'm cautiously optimistic that something could happen with the Safe Banking Act this year. But you know, if we don't start hearing something, you know, before the end of the first quarter about at least some type of a plan, then I'll be less optimistic. With respect to some type of legalization, I still think we're 3 to 7 years away, but that's okay for us because we are, you know, we want to be investing in companies that, like I said, we can build scale around. And the longer it takes to get there, the more opportunity for success that we think we can have with some of these investments. Because I was just funny. I was at lunch with an investor today, just, you know, talking about, you know, would it have been beneficial for it to have happened already? And I think the resounding answer for investors is probably no, because we want to be able to deploy this capital into companies that can attract the tens of billions of dollars that are going to be entering the space, you know, upon legalization. And because they're not going to be able to write, you know, $5 to $10 million checks. They're going to want to write big checks, and you better have something to sell them at that point.
Right, right. I want to sort of zoom in on Harborside in particular, because
Sure.
a company that's been around, well, since I was living in California a very long time ago. Talk a little bit about sort of that company and how you think about that in the California landscape.
Well, when we announced the signing of the definitive documents to merge Harborside, Loudpack, and Urban Leaf into a new company called Statehouse Holdings, it was the culmination of a year-long effort to make Harborside, or transform Harborside into the preeminent single state operator in the state. I mean, since we took over the board in the fall of 2020, a lot happened. I mean, we had the parent company and Glass House come into the picture, and so we were just going about our business on, you know, on the periphery, not having to worry about the you know, the difficulties of a SPAC. We just kind of decided to do this on our own, and we, you know, through a lot of hard work and hard negotiation and setting egos aside, we got these three companies together. And now we, you know, from a retail footprint standpoint, I think we're at number 2. From a production standpoint, we're right up there. We can basically cover all of our product needs with our facility in Salinas. We can do all the manufacturing and all the production and all the distribution, so we can capture margins at every level. And then we're planning on growing our retail footprint. And with Ed Schmaltz coming on board as our CEO with a pedigree of, you know, former COO at Patagonia, former CEO at FAO Schwartz, you know, many years on Wall Street, he brings a, you know, an acumen both for retail but also from a financial standpoint that is that's been lacking. And we're bringing, and this is the type of talent that's now available to the industry, and that's another thing that's very exciting to me, is the type of talent that we now have that we can attract.
Yeah, and I want to zoom in, well, maybe zoom out from that specific, but to talk about California, maybe other markets. That it's been a real challenge, partly supply chain, partly the markets, partly a resistant legacy market, or a strong legacy market too. Like, are we in a path towards California or other places where the tide turns as time goes on, right? Where the market just becomes bigger and bigger and more people are buying cannabis on the legal market?
Well, I sure hope so, but we're going to need some help from the state of California to get there. I mean, they've provided us zero help in the fight against the illicit market, and it's quite unfortunate because they had an opportunity to come in right away, help the businesses that are doing this legally, and tamp down the ones that are doing it illegally, and they've chosen not to do that. And so I have a very, very visceral reaction when I hear that California, either isn't moving in that direction or is hesitant to do so, because people are breaking the law, and we're not. We're doing it the right way, but yet we are taxed to death, and there are poor regulations that limit our ability to conduct business and enhance the ability for the illicit market to conduct theirs. And so it makes zero sense. Gavin Newsom has said recently that he is going to change that. So we'll see that the proof's in the pudding. But at some point, it's going to happen, because the illicit market is alive and well, and we need the state's help.
Yeah.
In terms of other states are, have learned lessons from others, California included. And I think you'll see less of a enabling of the illicit market in other states than we've seen in California as a result.
It's a bit, and like I think one that obviously we're keeping an eye on, and I'm sure you too, is New York. And I think everything they've said seems they've learned lessons from California and other places, both in terms of how they will deal with the legacy illicit market, but also how they will welcome legacy operators into the legal market, and what that means, because that's the other part. There needs to be that pathway, I think, and policy goals notwithstanding, like you need to be able to welcome people into the market so they operate in a legal market, legal framework. But is that one of the markets that, do you check in what's happening there every day, every week, every month? Well, like what's the focus on New York?
I wouldn't say every day, because we're still, this is likely a 2023 deal in New York and New Jersey. So, but that doesn't mean we don't have an interest in it. But it's just, but we're focused on deals that we can deploy capital in 2022. But we still obviously follow the regulatory steps that are being taken in those states.
Yeah. I don't know what the right analogy is, but I'd like to get sort of a final question in. If you think of cannabis in the US as a baseball game, let's say that, because at least it has 9 innings and you have many more choices. Like where do you think when you're talking to investors or thinking about investing money, like where do you think we are in that sort of baseball game? Are we getting deep innings from the starter, or are we still warming up the pitcher?
It's funny. I feel like we're stuck in an extra inning game in like the 3rd inning.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
Because we still have so far to go with what this end game is going to look like years down the road, when, you name it, all the big industries are involved, all the institutional capital's involved. But prior to that, we're still stuck in a regulatory morass in a lot of places, like we just talked about California, that we can't seem to get out our own way with. And so that part is frustrating, as I said before, but it's still a growing market. And the total addressable market, both if you look at the illicit market and the legalized one, is such a big industry that it's undeniable, the opportunity. And the fact that the opportunity is undeniable from a legalized one federally, from that standpoint. This isn't, the old things everybody says in the industry, that can't put the toothpaste back in the container, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, all that stuff. It's true. You can't unwind this now. And so it's happening right before our eyes, but it's hard to say what inning we're really at.
Maybe it's like a great first 3 innings that's constantly being rain delayed.
That, or just the 3rd inning being played over as Groundhog Day.
It's 3rd inning again and again and again.
That's right. Yeah.
Matt, I enjoyed the conversation. I hope we can connect with you down the road, and thanks for your time.
Happy to do it. Thanks, Jay.
You got it. That was Matt Hawkins of Entourage Effect Capital. If you like this program, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on businessofcannabis.com. We're able to do what we do because of ongoing partnerships with Alterna Savings, Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmark, Can Delta, Gallagher, Headset, and Torque and Maine. Find out all that we do at businessofcannabis.com.